Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. Blake, lots of stuff to talk about. The ever-changing world of college basketball. We've got SEC baseball in full force. Let's talk hoops, though, first, because there's always player movement. There's been some more since we last did one of these. What tops the list of things to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's still, kind of one of the teams we talked about last time. I think Florida's still, to me, towards the top of the list just recently. As we said, we talked about the ones that have had success in recent weeks. I think Florida's still that team, to me, is moving more towards, having one of the better off seasons, have a coaching change. You have Todd Golden come in. We talked about getting Castleton back. That was big. We mentioned on the last video we did that Kwesi Reeves was transferring. Well, he decides to come back. That to me is another big win for Florida. They bring in a guy like Trey Bonham from VMI, averaged about 14 points last year as a sophomore. So I think those are a lot of things for Todd Golden right off the bat to me that are big wins. We mentioned, Appleby transferring and all that kind of stuff, but I think they've had a very good offseason now to this point, getting two of their, I think, most high potential guys, of course, in Castleton and Reeves back. And so I think that's one on that side to me that Florida's really done some things in recent weeks that you feel a little bit better about where they're going to be. Still not having any idea what it's going to look like just from having a new coach and system and everything. But roster-wise, I think you feel a lot better about where Florida is. Vanderbilt, probably the other team most noteworthy in recent days. Losing Scotty Pippen, I don't know why anyone – I get it, but if there's always optimism and hope, and you try to be optimistic, but I don't really think there was a chance that he was coming back. I just think that we had kind of known that before the season started last year, and no surprise at all to me to see him go. And even if there was a point where, maybe we thought he could, there was that slightest chance, I never thought it was going to happen. So I had been looking at Vanderbilt without Pippen already, even before the announcement was made. Thought they had a nice pickup in Ezra Manjon from UC Davis. Someone like me who does the Big West for Blue Ribbon. I know talking to Jim Less at UC Davis, he's been very impressed with what he's done there, or what he did there. His first couple seasons. So I think that's a nice pickup for Vanderbilt. Really good player, quick guard. I think that'll help them at the point guard spot. So I don't think you expect him, Ezra Manjon to come in and be Scottie Pippen, but I think it's a nice pickup as a potential replacement. Again, not to the degree of Pippen, but still someone I think that'll be able to help them. So those are the two teams I think that kind of stood out to me over the past several days.
Yeah, my stance on Vandy was I thought if Pippen came back, probably an NCAA tournament team. If he doesn't, then they're probably not. That pickup helps, but I don't think that gets them there.
No. I don't think so either. But I think you still wait to see how the roster develops.
Right.
Because I think my point would still be, we could say that, but at the same time, there's a lot of change around the SEC, and so I think that's something where you at least have a little bit of stability, coaching wise, and he'll have some guys coming back that'll help them. But no, I don't think there's obviously going to be a gap going from Pippen to whoever is there to replace him. But I think it's still one where they're in the group of I don't want to place them right now because I don't know where I would place them until their rosters finalized. Probably just again comparing them to as a team that's losing its best player to other teams that are getting some of its better guys back, and how do you build the roster around it, to me, is still the question. So,
is there a team we can place other than Arkansas?
Yeah, I think you can place Kentucky and Alabama and Auburn, and place them specifically, probably not. Again, to me, no one to this point has done anything to make me believe that I wouldn't put Arkansas at 1 right now. Again, it's still mid-April, but I think that to me is probably the clearest one to this point. But I think Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn are probably the 3 teams I'd put behind them right now. I don't know in what order. Tennessee's going to be there. I think they'll be fine. And then I think it's just what do you get out of some of these other teams as they start to make their way forward, I think. But I think as of now, those are still probably a pretty clear top five. Although, like I said, I think Florida will have a chance to be in there. And I think that there will always be one of this group somebody will pop up that you don't expect. Right now, if I had to pick one of those, I don't know who it would be. I mean, again, it could be A&M, could be someone like that. But I think I think maybe two teams we go into the season not really knowing exactly what it's going to look like that could surprise the people would probably be LSU and Missouri. But again, we're still a long way away from knowing that exactly. But by the way, Demoy Hodge, who we did mention on the previous one in terms of leaving Cleveland State, and I said I wouldn't be surprised at all if he winds up at Missouri. That's exactly what happens. So Dennis Gates lands another former player of his there. I think that was a significant addition because, like I said, this is a kid who's put up 30 points, 40 points in games there, and I think Dennis Gates has put together a nice little roster to this point, to where, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they may be the team we're looking at and saying, "There's your sleeper team in terms of making a big jump in year one." New Mexico State, giving Chris Jans from there to Mississippi State. We said he's probably going to bring someone over. He brought Will McNair. I think that was a nice pickup because of the size, 6'10" kid. So, yeah, it's just your usual stuff. I mean, it's just your usual transfers. And I think what was it? Jeff Goodman put out the tweet this morning. Something about the SEC in terms of, I'm going to look it up real quick because I want to get the number right. But in terms of the transfers, high major transfers, I guess you could say, when you look at some of the conferences, yeah, the SEC had the most players transfer thus far among power leagues, but I don't think that's surprising because you've had more coaching changes in the SEC than you've had in any of those other leagues. So, it's combined 60 players have transferred from SEC teams, LSU with 9, Georgia with 8, Missouri 6, Ole Miss 6, Alabama 5, South Carolina 5, and so forth. So, yeah, I mean that's a lot of exits. But I think it's what we always say when you're building these teams. You only put 5 on the floor at one time, and when you're going to the SEC, you're probably going to be a very highly recruited player. And so, if you don't get the playing time, or if you transfer in expecting to get the playing time, and maybe it's just not the right fit, or you don't get the time you want, it's just as easy now to transfer out. So I'm not surprised at all by having that many players transfer, given that situation, and with how many coaching changes there have been.
I know I'm beating a dead horse from past shows, but I think this is the best way to put it. It feels like to me that we get a week's worth of news in March and April in SEC basketball that used to be good for a year, say 10 years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I just don't. I think that's what I always say. I realize like the job we do is everyone's supposed to have an opinion. Everyone's supposed to have a reaction to everything. I don't have a reaction to every player that transfers into the SEC or transfers out because I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where like I can't tell you that pick any player. Like let me just pick the first player I see that's going to an SEC school on verbal commits. Terry Roberts at Bradley going to Georgia. I can tell you certain things. Like I'm gonna give you his numbers right now. I'm gonna give you his stats from what he did at Bradley. He averaged 14.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Really good player. But I can't tell you right now that I think he's going to 100% be, the best player on Georgia's team, that he's going to 100% guaranteed be a success in the SEC. I have no idea. And I could say that about a lot of other guys. So I think that becomes the issue now is I know, again, that's what that's what people enjoy. It's what we all love it. Like we love predictions. We love, preseason stuff telling you where this team's going to finish 1 through 14. It's just way harder to do now because you're playing a guessing game. I don't care. I've said this before with 5-star recruits. You're always playing a guessing game on how things, the chemistry to me is always the biggest thing. Is the chemistry going to come together? If it doesn't, you're going to have where it just doesn't work. And so I think that to me, that's made it so hard to know what to get from any of these teams anymore. Is you can have a pretty good idea that they're going to be good, but sometimes it's like I just don't know how everything's going to come. I mean, again, let me say Arkansas. I think Arkansas has a chance to be the number one team in the country going the season. But I can't tell you with 100% certainty, or even what that certainty is, that everything is going to look exactly like you think it is, because it's all about chemistry, it's all about playing styles, and how players fit together. And I think when you do this now year after year, and you're basically flipping an entire roster for some of these teams, it just becomes you just hope that everything comes together. And so there's been many cases where it hasn't. There's been many cases where it has, and I think it makes it a lot harder to gauge what you're going to see year in and year out from a specific conference, because there's so many more variables at play now than there was, let's say a decade ago.
Anything else on hoops?
No, I mean, we've still got, draft decisions and those kind of things that are out there, and transfer portal as we're talking now. As of 23 seconds ago, someone else entered and it's officially hit 1,400. So,
Wow.
as I said, that number is going to keep going up. It'll get over 1,500. So, yeah, so we still got a long way to go, looking ahead to next season.
Let's talk a little baseball. The SEC's been so unpredictable, except for one thing this year.
What's that?
Well, it's Tennessee.
Oh, right. It's one thing. I thought there was something.
Although within that, they're awfully unpredictable in terms of what's going to happen. You've got Tony Vitello in the middle of a suspension now. I didn't totally understand what the beef was with the umpiring crew in that one the other day. But, yeah, I guess it's working for him.
Can I just say something real quick? And I don't want to go on a rant here. But I don't care if it's Tennessee. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Florida. It's any team in the SEC. I don't care. Okay, let's make that clear. For starters here, so no one thinks I'm picking on Tennessee. I don't care who you are. You can't bump an umpire.
No.
Can we just make this clear? Like, I have seen so much stuff on social media. I don't even care who it is. It's like, you can't do that. So when he gets suspended, I realize, fandom. I understand, and I know there's Tennessee fans are frustrated with the umpire, and I understand, because I think I was talking about, like, he was the one too that I think they've had issues with before.
Yeah. And I think, does that date back to last year?
See, that's what I was going to say. Wasn't he part of the what was it? The College World Series? Wasn't it one of their? I don't know. Tennessee fans, let me know in the comments. I'm trying to remember exactly the story on this, but I know there's a history there. But I just I think you've always got to I know in the heat of the moment, but it's like you can't do it. Like, that is something that will automatically get you suspended no matter what. And I know you're going to have a bunch out there that is always going to argue one way or the other, but it's like, I don't care who you are. You can't can't touch an umpire, and you can't bump an umpire.
This is what I don't understand. So. They were apparently upset with something over Alabama's reaction to Chase Dolander getting hit, but why is that an umpiring issue? That's what
I thought that got debunked. I thought somebody debunked that on Twitter. Maybe now, I could be wrong. There's a lot of debunking going on Twitter.
You don't say.
I think I saw several different people to provide several different reasons. Someone, I think, said it went back to something that had happened previously before that, but I don't know exactly what it was. But I just wanted to point that out, because I see that a lot, and I think sometimes it's just like social media. We can get so carried away with stuff, and it can become an echo chamber. Like, I just think it's one where, again, I don't care if it's Tennessee. I don't care who it is. Like, pick the worst team in Division I baseball. You cannot, it's just, you have to understand you're going to get those suspensions, and people are like 4 games and all this stuff. Like, that's just going to happen, man. Because, I mean, that's part of the game. Like, you can't do that. And what happens? No, just let him off. Well, then what are you going to do? You're going to have coaches coming out there giving stone cold stunners and, body slams and leg drops and Randy Savage flying elbows off the top. Like, it just ain't going to work. So I just wanted to say that. And I know that's a very small percentage of people who believe that, but yeah, I mean, like, you're going to have a suspension. And I think but again, like I said, I do understand from the Tennessee perspective of the frustration with a specific umpire, because we know it's not the only ones that have had an issue with one specific umpire before. And so that was an interesting turn of events, to say the least.
Well, I have watched SEC baseball, covered it from a media standpoint for about 20 years. I'm not going to say this is the first time I've seen it because I'm sure I've forgotten, but I don't remember ever seeing a coach make contact with an umpire. This is not something that just happens very often.
No, and again, that's why I think, because you know what happens if you do, and yeah. So I mean, unfortunate situation. I know Tennessee's been rolling, like you said, and they lost that first game to Alabama, but they came back in a big way after that. And so yeah, I mean, it's we always say too, it's kind of one you lose one of those games, all you've talked about is unbeaten and all this other stuff, and you finally lose one, does that kind of even maybe take a little bit of the pressure off of, I don't know. Sometimes I don't think there's a whole lot to that. I mean, you want to win every game you play, but yeah, still no doubt. They're 33-3 now, and yeah, playing very, very well. So
here's a stat for you. Their run differential, and I get that they had that series against, who was it? It was February where they just ran another team off the field basically in a 3-game series. But even if you subtract that, the totals are still impressive. Tennessee is plus 301 in run differential. Do you want to know what the next best team in the league is? And this is overall.
I mean, I would assume it's Arkansas, right?
But it is Arkansas at 144. That is the
Tennessee
gap.
3.
Tennessee's 301. Okay, here's next. You've got Arkansas at 144. You got LSU at 138. You got Vandy at 133. Ole Miss at 113. Everybody else on the other side of 100. Including Georgia, which is 26-10 and only plus 42. So that's one that you may want to see the bubble, or you may see that bubble burst soon based on that. Although getting Jonathan Cannon back would help a lot. But SEC play, run differential, Tennessee plus 77. Again, Arkansas plus 35. And then you go to A&M plus 28. LSU plus 20, Vandy plus 19. Everybody else in negative territory.
Not bad. Not bad. And you more than double the next closest team. Yeah. And I mean, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. They've got at Florida this weekend. They got Auburn, Georgia, the 2 top 25 teams as it stands right now.
Both at home.
They're at Kentucky and at Mississippi State. So, yeah, I mean, it's
Florida this weekend could be interesting. Florida plays pretty well in its park, and balls are good out there too. I think Hunter Barco, his status, a lot will depend on whether he can pitch. But Florida found some arms a little bit this weekend too, including one on Sunday. So that'll be interesting. But, I mean, the best mark in a 30-game season, Vanderbilt went 26-3. When was it, 13? Tennessee's on pace to smash, or not to smash it, but to beat it. That is one of those records that I never thought I would see fall. And this Tennessee team is a lot more dominant than that Vanderbilt team was. That Vanderbilt team was really good, don't get me wrong. Had some future major leaguers on it, several of them, but it was not just steamrolling people like this one is.
Yeah, it's boy, I tell you, that was it's a big series for Vanderbilt too. We talked about that going into last weekend. A&M put up some runs. I looked at that score on what was that? Was that Saturday or Sunday?
And to be clear, Georgia threw in the towel in Game 3. It just ran out of pitching. But I mean, I've been saying for a while that was kind of coming for them. I'm worried about them behind Cannon. They were without him this weekend, which didn't help. That'll help a lot because when you've got a healthy Cannon, you're going to win more often than not. But I'm thinking Georgia. Georgia right now has got the third best mark in the league. I don't think you're going to see that stand at season's end.
Yeah, I was I didn't watch the game, but I pulled up the score of that one, and I honestly thought it was a misprint because I pulled it up on the SEC's website and I saw the 10 in the ninth inning, and then like it had the running box score, but all it had was like one run in the 10th. Like that's all it had in the play-by-play. So I was thinking, oh, there's a misprint. They must just be one run. I'm like, oh nope, there's 10. And every player that started the game had an RBI, at least one. I think what was it, 7 of the 9? I think had at least 2 RBIs in that one for A&M. So you'll take a 23 spot. I think you'll take that. And I think if you're probably in pretty good shape if you can put up 23 runs. That's just my opinion.
A&M's really coming along, man.
I was going to say, I was looking at their schedule. They played really well since probably the 1st of April or so.
Won 3 series, have not been swept. Taken series from Georgia and LSU on the road. That's really good stuff to have in your pocket when Selection Monday comes.
And they got that. Was it the LSU series? It was the season opener or the SEC opener. I think they won that one. So
when they weren't really playing that well either. We didn't really know what they had. I feel like their transfers have sort of clicked for them. I feel like they're getting it on both sides right now, offense and pitching too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's I know we'll talk about the SEC, the games, the conference games this weekend, but I was looking ahead to Tuesday, and I mean, I guess you look at it. I mean, there's some of these. A&M plays Dallas Baptist, right? So that's an interesting one.
Which is the number 2 RPI team, I believe, is Dallas Baptist.
I was gonna say that's probably the most. I mean, Kentucky plays at Louisville. So, I mean, that's
always big
for Kentucky for sure. I guess I'm looking up and down if there's any others that are just kind of jump out at you.
Well, let me pull it up while you're doing it.
Clemson plays Georgia.
That's always big.
I think Kentucky, Louisville, Dallas Baptist, A&M are the 2 big ones from what I have seen here. I think I've got the full schedule in front of me. But that's the Tuesday games. There's 3 Wednesday games, but because Arkansas and Arkansas State play back to back, Tuesday and Wednesday. So I think those are the 2 big midweek ones. So
let's see. We've got Stetson. I don't know what Stetson is this year, but that's a perennially competitive team with Florida. Alabama and State on Auburn will be no match. Same with Jackson State, Mississippi State. UAB Alabama will be interesting. Tennessee Tech Vandy. Tech beat Tennessee last week with wooden bats. SEMO and Missouri. SEMO and Ole Miss. SEMO's usually a pretty good OVC team and was supposed to win the league coming into the year. I haven't checked up on them lately. And Louisiana and LSU. That one's usually interesting too. Louisiana's a really good team most years. So
you got some options here on
it's a better than usual midweek slate.
Yeah. So there you go. You got some options if you want to watch some good games.
This weekend, we were talking about this last week off podcast. I think the biggest series is Arkansas going to A&M. Because if Arkansas wins that, then I don't think anybody's beating them in the West. If A&M were to take 2 out of 3, just hypothetically, A&M all of a sudden is 10-8 with the road trip to Vandy the next week being a huge series. I think A&M at that point, I think A&M's a tournament team probably right now. I haven't looked at any brackets. I'm just looking at what they've done. That it probably screams 2 seed to me. Maybe a high 3. It doesn't really matter that much at that point. But I think that's your series. Tennessee, Florida has got a shot. But I just, at this point, doesn't feel like anybody's going to beat them anywhere, anytime. So I would hedge my bets on that. I think it's got to be. Georgia at Alabama could be interesting too. But I think A&M Arkansas, to me, is our most interesting series coming up this weekend.
Yeah, maybe most significant. That's why I keep looking at Tennessee, and I'm like, to me, they are to the point now to where it doesn't matter where they play, who they play. Like they are must see. And I think that's like, when Alabama, when they win that first game last week, then all of a sudden, like it becomes even more must see because you're like, oh man, like Alabama's a win away from taking the series here, and of course, we know just kind of everything that happened in the series overall, which we talked about a few minutes ago. But yeah, I think that one's still certainly. I think there'll be a lot of eyeballs on that one, especially let's say if Florida were to win the Friday night game. win the first one kind of like Alabama did, then maybe that makes it more interesting. But yeah, I mean, those two definitely stand out. I mean, Georgia, Alabama, I think is interesting too from that standpoint. But yeah, it should be an interesting weekend. I know we'll talk more about them throughout the week. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, which I mean that's usually the case, but there's a lot of interesting storylines as always. But I think this weekend maybe even more so. Just looking at some of these, so
Yeah, Alabama, Georgia is big for the winner. Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
yeah.
Loser that one is in deep trouble.
Didn't expect to be saying that necessarily.
No,
huh?
man, we thought those were both top 5, top 6 teams nationally. They're not top 5 or 6 in the SEC this year.
Yeah, that is a big one. Now that you say that, I think that's probably just as significant as some of the others in terms of for each team involved. Because I'm looking, Ole Miss has still got after that they got to go to Arkansas, they got to go to LSU, they got A&M, and they've got Missouri. So 3 series there that will not be easy for Ole Miss. I mean the Missouri one may not either. Mississippi State's got. Let's see, Missouri
at Missouri, Florida, at A&M, Tennessee. So not easy for them either.
Yeah, yeah.
And let's see, State is what 3 games under, and Ole Miss is 5 under. I mean, Ole Miss really needed to finish off that Carolina series and did not. That may be the I'd say death knell, but that's one that. If this doesn't get better, I don't even know if getting to a regional will do it. But I mean, that's got to be number one on. Watch for an opening here at this point if this doesn't get better because Mike Bianco, I don't even know what you call the deal with LSU a year ago. If it was flirting with it, or I think maybe he thought he was going to get the job. He's an alum there. Everybody had to walk down from that. It was awkward, and now really I think other than getting to Omaha, which was I think the expectation, I just don't think anything was going to make that fan base feel better. And 5-10 is certainly not, and a win over Mississippi State would only do it for a little bit.
Yeah, that is a big one. 6-9, 5-10, those 2 teams in the conference, and boy, I mean, you think about like. I don't think you're going to see a sweep, but it's like, boy, you talk about it not happy. if there's one way or the other, it doesn't matter which way it goes. Like you're going to have some.
Whoever loses that is going to be miserable regardless.
Yeah.
And a sweep would just.
I say, especially for Ole Miss. Like I think, again, I think it's both, but because they're the one, like you said, that has kind of let things slip away recently, maybe. Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal. So.
Yeah, I think if one team gets swept, you can just about say that season's done.
Yeah.
So if Ole Miss were to sweep, then Ole Miss gets a lot of new life, and suddenly that's looking like a tournament team again. With the series at Alabama, that's winnable. Missouri at home, LSU and Baton Rouge, and A&M at home. I mean, they've got some comparatively manageable series, but it all depends on this weekend. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I've got to go do radio in a minute. Any parting thoughts before we end the show?
No. We'll have more stuff on the way. So, be sure to subscribe.
I think we're going to try to do a featured series preview. Maybe try to roll that out tomorrow for baseball. I've got some work to do between now and then. I've had a crazy week. Yeah, I have. I've had some things going on in life around here that are just beyond control. By
the way, we'll have some
for now.
Yeah, I was gonna say. By the way, we'll have some NFL draft stuff coming too. I got all my draft stuff ready, so I got some SEC players in some good spots. So in my mock draft. So
you know what I want to see? I want to see hats off and hair slicked back when you do your NFL draft.
Kuiper. I'm ready to Kuiper.
That's what I'm. If you do that, I will buy you a case of Zero Bars.
I got my mock draft ready, and this is it's a good mock draft because people always accuse me from being the SEC bias, right? Well, you better get ready for this mock draft because there is a lot of SEC bias in this one. I got players everywhere in the top 15 from the SEC. So, congratulations! I think I got 3 Georgia players going back to back to back. So. That'll make Georgia fans happy, perhaps. But
All I
Jordan
want to
Davis.
know is how the Titans going to screw up the first round.
Well,
that's all I
Titans
need to know.
have. I don't know what their pick's going to look like at that point, but I will tell you that some of these guys I'm very high on. I think Jamison Williams is another one that, for some reason, he's sliding down the board because of the injury, but I think somebody could trade up to get him, and I'm gonna propose that trade when we do our NFL draft talk. There's your teaser. So
Can't wait to hear it. All right. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you soon.